This time of year, everybody's hurting. Everybody's got something. How many times have you heard that from a hockey player? How many times do you find out afterward what they really had and what they really went through? And how many times have you appreciated it properly? Good morning to you. Good Thursday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports. This is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. On the ice in Nashville in 2017, as I was walking around on that, it's hard to call it ice, it was more like white powder at that point, to collect as many interviews, as much information as possible, one of the things that I had on my list to ask everybody, figurative list, I don't actually make lists, was what's wrong with you? What's broken? What did you have? And that particular championship team had all kinds of ailments, and I actually ended up making it the focus of my writing for the evening. Patrick Hornqvist, who scores the winning goal, banking the puck off Pekka Rinne with 1:36 left, had a busted hand, had a hard time holding the cup, which is heavy. It's 35 pounds. Ian Cole wouldn't tell me, but Ian's mom did tell me that he had a busted hand and other busted parts. And he's standing behind her listening to this, and he's nodding, he's acknowledging it. And now you don't find that out. Players, for whatever reason, on the Penguins are told to not discuss their injuries even after the fact. Now, they can if they want to, but it's, not worth going against whatever your employer says. So when this past season ended, and there was plenty of discussion about whatever it was that Chris Letang was playing through, Tanger brought it up himself, but didn't get into any kind of specifics. Sidney Crosby said, it's amazing what he went through and what he continued to push through. You don't even know what that is. Well, we do now. Yesterday, the team, in Kyle Dubas's name, put out a press release about 3 players having surgeries. They described them as successful surgeries. What's an unsuccessful surgery? Like, oops, we blew it. But they always say that in all these press releases. Just had to throw that in there. Successful surgery. Of course it was successful. John Ludwig was one of them. He had surgery to repair a tendon in his wrist. 4 to 6 months expected recovery time. One would imagine he'll be a full go for training camp. One would also imagine that with his style of play and the way he's already been bounced repeatedly out of the lineup, he might be one of those guys that just has a hard time staying on the rink. And speaking of that, Matt Nieto was one of those guys. Wow, this guy had some lousy luck. I don't know how many different injuries he had, but this is the first one that's actually been reported by the team. He underwent successful MCL surgery on his left knee. His recovery time is 6 to 7 months, so he's not at all a certainty for training camp. And really, the way things have gone for him, you might think he's just flat out done playing hockey. This episode is brought to you by Bet Online, your number one source for all your summer sports needs this season. From Major League Baseball, golf, NHL, NBA playoffs. Get the latest odds and lines, including all team matchups, player props, odds on just about everything that's out there. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Bet Online, where the game starts. And then there's Tangers. He had surgery, which, by the way, they don't note as having been successful, so it might have been disastrous. Letang's surgery was to repair a fractured finger on his left hand, and his expected recovery time is 8 weeks. Now, you can say, fractured finger. I mean, how does that compare to this or that or whatever? Think about what this man does for a living. Think about the physical nature of his job. Think about what's all involved in, operating a hockey stick, making hard passes, getting off hard shots, shoving dudes out of the way, and he does that a lot on the penalty kill. And then, remember, he didn't miss a game. He would have these occasional, what Mike Sullivan refers to as maintenance days, which are 100% of the time means that the dude's hurt. 100%. But he kept playing in the games. He kept logging his usual 25, 26 minutes. He was on both special teams. And every once in a while, especially over the season's final, let's say month or several weeks, he'd mess up. And even as I say that out loud, maybe it triggered something in your head where you remember one of those mistakes that he made. And you go, that guy, he's not. Well, now's the time to fully absorb all of this and say, hey, maybe it's possible he had difficulty even gripping the shaft on that play that made you really, really mad. And maybe that's the case for other guys when they mess up too. I don't want to be, rolling out some river of excuses here. There's a lot more people that didn't have surgeries announced yesterday than did. And of course, not every injury, thankfully, requires surgery. But it's just worth bearing in mind, and I will try to parenthetically throw it in on occasion when I'm critical of somebody. I'll say, you never know what somebody's dealing with, but ... When we come back, J1Q. Today's J1Q comes from Steve, and it's in response to my latest Jacob Trouba screed delivered on yesterday's show. Steve asks, so DK, what do you think about the Sam Bennett versus Brad Marchand incident? Was that a sucker punch on Bennett's part? I'm curious as to your opinion. I have a couple of thoughts on this, Steve, and they don't necessarily both have something to do with the actual incident. One, and this is really, really fishy, is that magically, after a full day had gone by, a different angle of that contact between Bennett and Marchand showed up. And it wasn't some fuzzy Zapruder-looking thing from the upper deck. This was a plain as day professional TV camera. Those things cost like $50,000. They're really, really good at what they do. That showed you, I think, indisputably what occurred, which is that Bennett reached around with his right hand, and they call it a rabbit punch because you're not really rearing back to let it fly. So I'll go with that terminology as well. And it did damage. But also, in that glove, maybe, just maybe, there could have been the butt end of Bennett's stick, according to my view. I could be wrong. So, yeah, it was lousy. It was lousy. The hit itself. You can call it a hit. The punch. It's not remotely a hockey play. But to swing back to the fishiness, so the league has this thing. They had this video. This video didn't show up on their doorstep the following day. They had it all along. And it wasn't made public until somebody with one of the networks found it and released it. So then, once it was released, the league was forced to comment a second time, and they made the remark that, yes, they've seen the video and da-da-da-da-da, and they didn't say when they saw it. And they described what happened as a hockey play. And all the terrible things, just take all the terrible things that you could possibly say about a sports league, make a long, long list of them, and I could read them to you right now. That's the National Hockey League. And all of their various enablers on these networks, and they populate these shows with these guys, allow this crap to not just happen, Because the stuff's going to happen regardless. It's how you react to it that makes the difference for future incidents. I would say this, if I was a real live commissioner, I would want to know, let's say 3 things here. 1, who saw this video? Meaning, who in the league saw this video and when did they see it? And if they were holding it back for any reason at all, what would that reason be? I'd want to know that. Just, call me crazy here, but I'm a commissioner who would want to know if there was something shady going on in my department of player safety. Second thing I'd want to know is who had the audacity to attach the phrase hockey play to that incident. Who was it that would have that thought even cross their minds? And then I would ask them to describe for me what hockey benefit, other than, of course, eliminating the other team's best player, could this play have? In what way, shape, or form was it related to the beautiful sport of ice hockey? And the third thing I would ask is for George Paris's resignation, but I would do that anyway. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins. We're going to do another one of these tomorrow.